Welcome to the Lindsay Hadley Podcast show. I'm coming to you from the North Shore of Oahu, where weekly I interview some of the world's most inspiring people from business, philanthropy, and entertainment. I love collecting humans, and these are some of my favorites I've found along the way. This podcast is brought to us by Capita Financial Network.
Do you need help with the next steps of your financial plan? Think Capita. Capita is a financial network built around you. They have a team of financial advisors, CPAs, estate attorneys, Medicare providers, and Social Security experts to help you accomplish your financial goals. Call or schedule a complimentary consultation at 801-566-5058 or visit their website at capitafinancialnetwork.com. You can also check out their financial education podcast, The Financial Call, available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and YouTube.
Hi, Alexis. Thanks so much for joining us today on our show. I'm so thrilled to have Alexis Sofyanos from Esusu here today. It's fun. You're my first female interview on my podcast that we just started, the Lindsay Hadley Show, presented by Capita Financial Network. So we're so thrilled to hear from you today and get to know you, Alexis, and just really, really excited to hear about your business with the residential and real estate market and everything that you guys are doing. So, Alexis, why don't you share with us a little bit about you, your background? I'm so thrilled to meet a female leader inside of a fast-growing, fast-paced company, and to understand a little bit about you. Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about your background and story. Thanks so much.
Sure. Thank you. And thanks for having me. Really, really grateful to be here today. So I am currently the head of revenue and business development at Esusu Financial, which is a property technology platform that's supporting the multifamily industry and its renters. But before that, a year ago or a year and a half ago, if you would have told me that I would be at a fast-paced startup, I would have thought you were crazy and said, no way. I come from a very traditional real estate background. So the bulk of my career has been with Freddie Mac multifamily, where I was on the lending side of the commercial real estate space. My role there was really focused on the production and sales side of things, being responsible for sourcing, structuring, and pricing multifamily loans for many of the owners and operators of multifamily housing that Esusu works with today. Before that, I was a CPA. I was in the audit practice at Deloitte. That is very much a past life. I joke that I'm a recovering CPA. But I graduated from the University of Wisconsin, and Wisconsin raised and haven't gone far. I'm now located in the Chicagoland area. So that's a little bit about my background, and excited to tell you more about Esusu here today.
Oh, that's so exciting. So you've been in some pretty male-dominated industries between like Deloitte and as a CPA. I mean, those are, you don't see a lot of women there. Is that right?
Yeah, in finance in general, in multifamily in general as well, it is still a male and predominantly a lack of diversity, whether it be through gender or race or ethnicity. And so, interestingly, my most recent role at Freddie Mac Multifamily was launching their equitable housing division. And so it was focused on three things: rental affordability, increasing borrower diversity, as well as renter advancement. And so in the renter advancement lens of how can we better the lives of America's renters, that's where Esusu came into the picture, launched a formal program with them, and the rest is history. Now I'm here today. So really grateful to have had throughout my journey, both male and female mentors who have coached me along the way. And it's also great to just see a lot more representation, not just within Esusu, since we're minority owned and backed, but across the industry as well.
That's so exciting. So tell us a little bit about Esusu and your services. I mean, you mentioned that they're making it more affordable housing more accessible, which is wonderful, especially in the market right now. My goodness, it's been a crazy market the last few years. I bet it's been amazing to be. How long have you been with Esusu, and how long has it been, incorporated, and what's kind of the journey of your guys' company so far?
Yes, that's a great question. So, before I go into what Esusu is, I always start with the why. We were founded by two co-founders, Samir Goyal, whose family immigrated from New Delhi, India, and Wamimo Abe, whose family immigrated from Lagos, Nigeria. Both just saw how difficult it was to establish credit and to really pursue the American dream, if you will, with little to no financial resources or financial identity. And so Esusu was founded on the core ethos that no matter where you come from, the color of your skin, or your financial identity, it shouldn't determine where you end up in life. And so, double clicking outside of Esusu, though, there are 45 million Americans who are still currently credit invisible, and that number skews heavily towards minorities, renters, and immigrants. So dialing in on the renters piece, hundreds of millions of Americans are rent burdened, meaning they spend the bulk of their monthly income on rent, and 60% of renters today are living paycheck to paycheck. And so renters just are being disproportionately impacted. Today, less than 10% of renters receive credit for their on-time rental payments, whereas homeowners have their monthly housing payments via mortgages reported to the credit bureaus every single month.
Wow.
And so founded on both those shared experiences by our two co-founders, as well as this systemic problem impacting a large swath of America being renters, they founded Esusu to really flip that script. And so more practically speaking, Esusu really cut its teeth in the rent reporting space. Today, we offer 3 core offerings. We partner with multifamily owners, operators, investors, and property managers to offer 3 things. So when life is going well, that's where our rent reporting comes into play. So
Cool.
when a renter pays their rent on time and in full, we report those on-time rental payments to the credit bureaus so that we can give renters credit where credit is due in making their monthly housing payments every month.
Nice.
That's when life is going well. But as we've seen, to your point about it being a tough market and tough macroeconomic forces, when life is not going well, our second offering is a rent relief or a rental backstop offering. And so when a renter experiences short-term financial shock, that renter who's living in an Esusu community is able to apply for 1 to 3 months rent at 0% interest that is wired directly to property management. So it's eviction prevention. It is promoting housing stability, and it proves to be accretive from the value perspective to that housing provider. And then the last piece is, with the growing presence of ESG and social impact, we're able to capture and quantify a lot of the great work that we're doing on the rent reporting and the rent relief side for investor or other purposes of reporting. So being able to say, here's how many renters that we've helped create credit scores, improve their credit scores by X points, or move X tiers or buckets, and prevent X number of evictions and things like that. So being able to capture and quantify that social impact is something that's very much needed in the multifamily space today.
Yeah. So with the multifamily real estate market right now, I understand that there, tell me a little bit about what happened during COVID, because we saw credit became easier for a time and everything. There's a boom in the market. I know real estate was blowing up, and then we've seen this massive correction. Are you seeing the same? I'm guessing it's not the same for residential real estate as it is, or I should say multifamily residential real estate. It's a little bit maybe more secure, or is that generally the case? I've heard that. I'm not from the real estate market, but I understand it's like a little bit more secure than just regular residential.
Yeah. So how the past few years have been impacting multifamily has been, during that boom that you are noting, historically low interest rates, a lot of capital, both, domestically and internationally flowing into the multifamily investment space here in the US. Rent levels were going like this, but we've seen wage levels remain stagnant. And so the affordability crisis in terms of the number of renters who can afford their rent has become much more acute. All the while, throughout COVID, we've seen in various sectors and markets, we've seen a lot of job loss. We continue to see with the rising interest rate environment and everything else that's happening, downward pressure on budgets, not only at the entity or the corporate level, but also at the property level. And so there's just been a lot of interesting levers being pulled. Where Esusu comes into all of that is from the renter perspective, with rents skyrocketing, wages staying stagnant, or having that, having higher job losses in recent months and things like that. We are able to provide that sense of financial resiliency for renters, either by establishing or improving credit scores so that renters can achieve lower interest rates or savings outside of their costly rents, but also having that backstop through our rent relief. So if a renter does experience financial shock or has a rent increase that they need to get back on their feet to cover, our rent relief then comes into play to help them out. And then it's a win-win because on the owner operator side, as property performance is becoming a little bit more volatile given these macro forces of, again, higher interest rates, downward pressures on budgets, and so on and so forth. Having our platform be not only a property differentiator, so you have a stickier renter that reduces your turnover and turnover expenses, but more notably, our rent relief truly does provide cash flow stability. And so it's a direct reduction to property level bad debt expense.
Yes.
And it keeps cash flows healthy during a time when both renters and owner operators or property management needs it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you come in, you do this rental relief, and the onus of, is it sort of like an additional credit that then the renter has to then pay back over time and with a markup in interest rate? And how long is the life cycle of that loan? I mean, what if somebody's in trouble for a long time? What's the runway and kind of the product offering?
Yes, that's a great question. So if a renter is experiencing financial shock, either they're in it and they've missed a month's rent, or they experience some sort of financial shock and are experiencing or projecting potentially the inability to pay rent, that renter in the Esusu ecosystem applies directly to Esusu for this rent relief. Our strike zone is 0 to 3 months delinquent because we want to be in the business of preventing eviction as opposed to delaying eviction. And so what we've seen statistically and from a data-driven perspective is 0 to 3 months delinquent is truly that sweet spot to get that renter back on track so that they continue to pay their rent and get back on track with their property manager. And so the great news about that is that we see the majority of all residents who receive rent relief, the majority of those residents are truly getting back on their feet, continuing to pay rent, and continue on with their lease. But the mechanics of it are once approved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so once approved, it's 1 to 3 months rent at 0% interest. And we work with that renter directly on that repayment plan. And so while those funds are wired directly to property management, we have that separate agreement with that resident to work on a payment plan for us that works with them and their financial need.
That is so cool, Alexis. So I can see that because that was my first thought. Is like, oh, a lot of times, I mean, but you would know the data, like, people will it just delays inevitable eviction, and then there's just more debt piled up or whatever. That's really cool that you guys know that research and you guys have seen that. So, I mean, in your experience, do you guys market? I mean, this is such an interesting industry that I don't know too much about, but when you guys market, do you market directly to the renters, or do you market to those who are the property owners to then offer the relief? Say, okay, you have a problem, here's a solution, or what's kind of your target marketing strategy?
Yes, so we are very much B2B. So we engage with the owners and operators of multifamily, the investors, equity syndicators, property management groups, to provide our holistic platform to their properties and then thereby their renters. So we're in a way a B2B2C organization. When we do start working with a partner, a B2B partner, we work with them to make sure that their residents are aware of what Esusu does and the great value that it has to them. We work on site with property management to post flyers, to have information sessions, QR codes, so that if people are experiencing financial shock, they can quickly know and apply and just have that knowledge that our rent relief is there to help when they need it. When it comes to us being kind of, we like to say that we're very much the S in ESG, so environmental, social, and governance principles. We're very much the S in ESG, but when you take a step back and you look at other ESG solutions, they're very they're very in-depth, they're hands-on, they require capital expenditures. We very much operate in the background until we're needed. So we attach onto property management software. We provide, we take all the lift off of property managers and the boots on the ground, and we're there when renters need us. And so we're reporting their rents in the background while they're paying their rent on time and in full. And when they need that rent relief, then they come to us.
That's really cool and really helpful. And tell me a little bit about, so you came into this world, what stage of the company, like, where did you join? And like you said, you didn't imagine you'd be in a startup, actually coming from a big institution like Deloitte.
Yes. And so when I was at Freddie Mac, and I was
right. Freddie Mac as well.
I was at Freddie Mac and was partnered with the Esusu team to figure out how we could collaborate on this concept of renter advancement. At the time, I don't want to joke and say it was, Samir and Wamimo, two guys in their garage, but it was a team of probably 20 at the time. And that was summer of 2021. So still in the depths of COVID and whatnot. They were a team of 20. Fast forward to January of 2022, Esusu raised a very successful Series B funding round of $130 million.
Wow.
Really putting us
so impressive
putting us on the radar, but also elevating Esusu to be, unicorn status with $1 billion valuation.
Yes.
And so
and how many years was that? That was with 20 employees? That was with 20 employees. That's incredible. What a feat.
And so then fast forward to today, we have almost 200 team members. We've experienced 600% year-over-year growth.
Wow.
Most of which would not be possible without that Series B, raising and just the great rapid success that we've been having in the market, because people are truly valuing our services as that win-win. It's good for renters and it's good for their bottom line. Our founders refer to that as justice capitalism, right? You can do good while doing well at the same time.
Yeah. Plus it's minority owned business, which is so fun to hear of a winning experience like that. So when was Esusu actually founded? If you joined in 2021?
So I was still at Freddie when you raised your Series B. So I joined in early May of last year. So I'm almost on my 1 year mark.
Yay, congrats.
Which in startup life, I've heard you can refer to it in dog years. So what is that, 7 years?
That's hilarious. It's so true though. Having been a part of a lot of startups, there's nothing like those first years. Like there's nothing like it. So that's so exciting, Alexis. So,
but Samir and Wamimo launched the organization back in 2018, where we were very much still very focused on rent reporting. And then in 2020, through their work with a lot of large endowments and foundations, that's when they launched almost serendipitously, heading into the COVID crisis. That's when they launched their rent relief, the rent relief side of the business, in conjunction with the separate 501c3, because what was happening was so many of these, high net worth individuals or foundations were really focused on solving homelessness, but they were doing it backwards. When renters or folks were already experiencing homelessness, the goal of our rent relief is to prevent eviction and homelessness, and so get ahead of it. And so that's our ethos and really what drives us to what we do.
That's incredible. And what exactly is your role there as Esusu, Alexis? What's your current role?
I am, so I run business development and revenue. And so, my role here is to help Esusu reach as many multifamily owners, operators, and investors, and thereby those communities and renters, to amplify our mission, vision, and impact. I do this by overseeing a team of over 35 revenue professionals across 3 teams to drive sales and to drive those meaningful and impactful partnerships. We live and work and operate across the country. We are very much a remote workforce, but what's great is that Esusu's reach is also across all 50 states. And so we're able to work with all multifamily groups of a variety of different shapes and sizes. And so it keeps the job interesting, in that there's always someone new to be, sharing and amplifying, Esusu's mission and vision with.
So this is getting pretty granular, but I'm so fascinated. I mean, what a pain point you guys are solving, right? And I'm wondering, so you, as you said, you're B2B and B2C, but as you are out trying to find these multifamily operators and investors and groups, What's your biggest strategy? Do you go to a big private equity fund that's investing in these? So it's a one-stop shop for you? Like, and that's my first question. My second question is, you know, is your mechanism and model with those customers or clients, I guess, or is it like a membership dynamic, or is it just performance based? Like you come in and provide that access through to them. Do they pay you for the privilege, or is all of the onus of the expense on the actual renter?
That's a great question. So a two-pronged question. So our go-to-market strategy and how we target those B2B customers of ours is really focusing first and foremost on, like you said, those large institutional top, national multifamily housing councils, top 100 or top 50. We work with the bulk of those, but that's not to say that we only work with large groups, big and small, but we also span verticals. So while we very much cut our teeth in the traditional multifamily space, meaning everything from public housing to Class A luxury, we also span various verticals. So we're getting into student housing, single family rentals, manufactured housing. And so there's no shortage of white space in terms of the owners, operators, or like you mentioned, private equity investors, or more socially impacted, focused investors who are the investor side of multifamily.
Yeah.
We also have partnerships with lenders and both government agencies to really amplify our footprint, our impact, and who we are able to target and market to. So with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they subsidize our cost of services to their borrowers who engage with us. So those are the ultimate owners and operators of multifamily housing. And so they have deep subsidies along with other strategic lender partners of ours who have that one-to-many relationship. And so we are going directly to the source with the owners and operators and investors of multifamily housing. We're also going to those amplifying relationships that have that one-to-many kind of touch point to get our word and message out.
Cool. And then the second part is like, the mechanism, how you charge, like your fee structure, I guess. Is it always on the rentee? I guess the renter who's actually going to be taking part of your services to relieve their rent that's due?
So this is one of my favorite questions to ask because that is what sets Esusu apart. We pride ourselves on not billing the renter for these services because that's just not in the spirit of what we're collectively trying to accomplish. And so we charge the businesses that we engage with, we charge them a very small per unit per month fee to engage in our bundled services. So, for that small fee at the unit level, they have access across their portfolio or however many properties they decide to enroll with us, access to all three of our core offerings. So rent reporting, rent relief, and the social impact data.
That makes sense. That's why you need to have those other services. I was like, I wonder why you went to try to encourage feedback of, people who have good credit scores. I'm like, what would the value of that be? It's a nice thing to give value back to the renter. But that makes sense now.
Your renters are your biggest asset. You might as well invest in them. But when we say investment, we are not solely a cost center. While the social returns of our platform are very obvious of creating more financially resilient renters, the economic returns are very much there in that we improve property performance and improve, the bottom line of properties, portfolios, and funds. And so that's something that we're really proud of being able to demonstrate that value in a scalable way for groups both large and small.
That's so exciting. So that was their Series A that they valued it at, what was it again? 100 and
Series B at
Series B.
130 million.
130 million. That's so exciting. So how many current, I guess, customers, if your customers are the multifamily operators, how many customers do you guys have currently? How many are you working with? Because then you extrapolate that to renters, it's even more people you're impacting.
Exactly. So we have a reach of a little over 1 million renters across 3.5 million rental units in all 50 states. We've helped establish first-time credit scores for 50,000 individuals who were previously credit invisible. And our average score increase for those who previously had credit scores typically hovers around 30 points on average across our portfolio, which
Wow.
is really fantastic and is meaningful. That moves buckets, right? From
Yeah.
poor to fair to good, good to excellent, but that also yields accretive savings in terms of lower interest rates and better financing vehicles that you have access to. So the amount of capital that we're able to connect dots for our renters is really what energizes us and brings us to work every day, if you will. And so it's also exciting to demonstrate that impact to our folks, and that we're not just establishing credit, building credit, or preventing evictions. We are also able to show through our impact reporting what renters are going out and doing with those better or established credit scores. So overwhelmingly, folks are leasing or purchasing or financing a vehicle. That's economic mobility to get you to a better job, to get your kids to a better school district. Being able to connect those additional dots and provide that so what of what we're doing is not only something that we take pride in, but has been immensely valuable for the folks that we partner with.
You articulate the value so well, Alexis. Esusu is so lucky to have you. You're such a great ambassador, and you really understand like the mission. And it's very clear that you're creating a full service value for everybody in the ecosystem involved, which is really powerful, right? That's when you know you have something that is scalable, when like everybody's winning. So that's really incredible. So when you're out there, hustling the pavement to meet these multifamily operators, do you attend conferences? Is it LinkedIn? Like what have you found? Because, we have a lot of listeners that are business owners, and I think understanding how different disparate verticals find and attract and close in development efforts to grow their company and their revenue. Like, it's just fun to hear what people are doing that might be innovative, or just seeing what works in your particular purview.
Yeah, especially for us, when you look at the bulk of our growth and our rapid growth was during COVID, when everything was very remote. I always like to call that out because it's such an aha moment. The multifamily or the real estate market in general is ripe for disruption, but it's very, very relationship driven. It is a very familial, relationship oriented business. And so a lot of what we're doing is just that it's in-person time. So it's really great to be back out there. We do a lot of conferences. We do a lot of customer touch points and a lot of networking and whatnot to really get the word out by either, hosting or sponsoring events, going to industry trade shows and conferences. That has been historically where a lot of our success has come from in order to, to drive market share and really tackle that white space. And I'm excited to see how that continues to evolve, especially just given the macro environment, hearing rumblings of, if our target customers are scaling back on business travel or scaling back on expenses and not going to as many conferences and so on and so forth, how do we then pivot our go-to-market strategy to cater to them? And so if COVID taught us anything, change is the only constant, and you've got to continue to evolve. And we continue to do that, and it's energizing, but it definitely keeps you on your toes.
That's so exciting. It probably, it's amazing because has anyone ever told you you look like Anne Hathaway? It's like, you're so beautiful.
Yeah,
and so you have had that. You're so beautiful, and then your energy is so good, and you're so articulate, and I think it's amazing. But really, I'm realizing you're really in a sales position now. So you went from like finance these mechanisms, but now you're communicating this value. Did you have a knack for that, or was it something that you kind of like, wow, I had to step out and discover this about myself, like on a personal level, that like, because a lot of people aren't comfortable with sales, and I've personally spent a career, fundraising and being in promoting and sales and development my whole career. And I just think it's just storytelling at the end of the day. It's just communicating the value, right, of something. And if you have something like I can't sell something I wouldn't buy. Like, that's the one hack for me. Like, if I didn't actually believe in it, it's very difficult. So I learned that early on. It was like, you're putting lipstick on a pig. It's like, good luck, and, you still might sell it, but there's something inside it that's it's not going to be authentic. Right. So if you really believe in it, you can see with your passion, you're like, you're part of something powerful and helpful and that's blessing people's lives. And that makes it something you can feel really good about, being a part of something with a purpose. But yeah, always have that ability to communicate value, and or is this something that's kind of a new part of your career?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I guess thank you for the kind words. Very kind. I think I'm glad that my passion for Esusu and what we're doing is palpable. And I think that's what brought me here, but that's also what's keeping me, energized and getting out there and being able to, evangelize the platform, if you will. But no, I mean, had you told me several years ago that I would be in a sales role, I would have laughed as well. I'm very, very risk averse. I think growing up in Wisconsin, I just, have more of a upper Midwest mentality of, work hard. I don't know. I would have never put myself in this box that I am in, if you will. But I love it, and I think part of it is that I am more extroverted than introverted. And when I was, a CPA and an auditor at the time, I was so sick of looking at the past and looking at financial statements. I really wanted to take your words, drive value and have a much more forward and outward facing role. And so when I came over to Freddie Mac, it was very much that. It was on the production side, so kind of sales light, if you will. But this is very much, this is business development and driving revenue and driving sales, which I personally don't have that technical sales background. But to your point of being authentic about knowing how the industry works and operates, knowing who you're selling to and what their hot buttons are, what drives and motivates them, is something that really translates well, no matter if you're in sales or not in sales. And I'm a big and very strong believer that you should always surround yourself by those who are better and smarter than you. And so I am fortunate to have a team of revenue team members who come from a variety of different backgrounds, but the common theme is really strong, technical sales and relationship development skill sets. I have 2 deputies who are just so fantastic at what they do that they make me better. And so I think that that's part of it too, that we have a very collaborative sales culture, which is rare, but I think that is what helps us succeed. And it's very, palpable or very obvious from the outside that we have that collaborative, do-good nature.
Yeah, what a gift it is to be on a team with such great culture. I have that privilege at Capita. Like, it's the best culture I've ever been a part of. And I've consulted a lot of great organizations, and I've never seen such deep kindness. And it's funny because, a mentor of mine who's recently been helping me understand the difference between being nice and being kind. And they kind of are different, right? Like, I never initially saw that on first base, but like, clear is kind and being direct, but also like, there's such a generosity of spirit at our company at Capita. And people can feel when they literally, like, I think it's metaphysical. Like, they walk into the space and they're like, oh my gosh, like, these people are for me and for each other. And it makes you feel safe. I think it like calms your parasympathetic nervous system, and for everything inside you goes, I'm home, I'm with family, I'm good. I can say I don't know, I can ask for help, I can admit that I messed up and say I'm sorry, and nobody's going to be like, chalking one up against me. It's a beautiful culture, and I'm glad you are feeling that with your team. Have you learned along the way, like you mentioned you have great mentors, men and women. What are some of the core principles in business and in life that you kind of might want to share? I know that's a really big existential question, but I think, like, I love to get, I think I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I think, I love that we got technical, and I was super interested, and I'm sure our listeners will be too, to the unique value offering and disruption that you guys are offering the market, which is so exciting. Because there's a value in that. It's like seeing what other people are not seeing, right? Common sense isn't always common practice, right? And so someone coming in and saying, hey, this is a pain point, I'm going to solve it and do it with such vigor is so exciting. But like, I do think that there's something about getting past kind of something where it's more universal and having conversations that's like, oh, these are really truly edifying principles that I live by, that have helped me succeed and get where I am. I think these are principles in the core cultural paradigm of our company or our founders, or, what I mean, in your family or through these mentors. Is there any stuff you want to share that you feel like are key ingredients to success and happiness and being fulfilled as a human being that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think, what is one thing that always sticks with me that one of my mentors continues to tell to me is stop and smell the roses. Whether that's pause or look at how far you've come. You by no means can rest on your laurels, but for us, at least in Esusu, it's such a fast-paced, high-growth environment. Always, and I think just being in a more sales-driven or a revenue role, it's always what's out there, what didn't close, what are competitors doing, how can we be better, how can we innovate, how can we evolve. That taking that time to not only pause and take a step back, think about things big picture, take yourself out of the weeds, but also look how far you've come and look at the great work that you're doing. Is something that I have it on a Post-it note on on my monitor behind the screen, because I do need that reminder, because I'm just I think especially in a startup role, it's not just isolated to me. That's really important to remind yourself, what are you doing? Why are you doing? Don't sweat the small stuff, because this organization and what we're trying to accomplish is bigger and more important than the small stuff, if you will. And so just really grateful that also our two co-founders really practice what they preach in terms of that same thing. And so we start every single all hands team calls with not only grounding with here's our mission and our vision statement, but more importantly with real resident testimonials. And so one that sticks with me was from a few months ago, a single mom of 3 who lost her job, and our rent relief helped her, she and her family stay in their home, helped her get back on her feet and find that next job. And so it's moments like that where, yes, we need to stop and pause and take a look at the bigger picture ourselves of that great impact that we're making. And it's something that I need to practice more of. And so that's just a nugget of wisdom that I've received from mentors in the past that I think directly apply to what we're doing.
I love that, Alexis. You actually have very calm and present energy, which is actually fairly rare for a sales position. So those were some cues. I thought, you come from finance. They usually, especially accountants, they usually do not have this kind of fast-paced, mover and shaker energy. Generally speaking, there's people that can get really granular and, like you said, really avoid risk averse. And then recognizing that, your just energy is so incredibly calm and present and grounded. I think those are amazing qualities of leadership. So, but sometimes you get caught up just kind of in the pull of what's next, especially a company growing this fast. That's like neck-breaking speed that you guys are growing. And that's really exciting. What are some of the things that you guys are looking to protect against coming up? There's a lot of our listeners that are investors and high net worth people that real estate has been a really safe place. But right now it's a scary time. I know a lot of people are holding back and going, I'm going to wait. This market's cooling. I don't know. Right. And as you said, there's a lot of macroeconomics at play and macro factors going in. And it's kind of interesting because really at the end of the day, it's all confidence games in business, right? It's all just like a matter of paradigm and do we believe something? And then it shapes the market, right? So if we collectively have confidence in something and we all can see the potential, then it totally moves the needle instantly and makes more abundance. It's fascinating how powerful our collective mind share is and thinking and paradigms are. But what are you guys seeing right now? And are you feeling optimistic? Are you feeling a little bit like, okay, we need to prepare ourselves? Is there any strategies you can share with our listeners about, this market particularly and real estate and the economy at large? Can you give us any great insights?
Yes, absolutely. I had someone yesterday say, if we're going into a recession, it's going to be, short and shallow. And I love eternal optimists like that. I think it's, we are definitely, whether you want to use the R word, the recession word or whatnot, we are not just entering, we're in uncertain waters, right? Just given everything in the market. And that impacts not just investors, multifamily owner operators, venture capital, investors in Esusu, our renters, everybody in the ecosystem is feeling that uncertainty. How can Esusu continue to be that steady force that is supporting renters, supporting our housing providers that we partner with, and continuing to evolve with them. So not just demonstrating that those measurable outcomes for their renters and their property performance. How can we continue to evolve and grow and scale so that we continue to be that one-stop shop that folks keep coming back to on all things renter advancement and whatnot? And so not just looking inward at our product and our delivery and making sure that we keep up with our pace of growth, but also always thinking about what's next and how can we continue to innovate. Right now during these uncertain times, this is when you really double down and you really build those strong relationships with your existing customer base. And our great teams are who are, on the customer and account management side of things are doing just that and are saying, here's how we're supporting your renters and supporting you. What else can we be doing and things like that. It's never always that sales call. It's always, how can we be a trusted business partner of yours? And that's something that we're definitely double clicking on during these more uncertain times, knowing that they're feeling the stressors as well as anybody else's in this current market.
That's really cool. Is Esusu's ambition to ultimately become like a public offering? Do you think that's something that they're hopeful for?
Definitely. I think that's always everyone in the space's goal. And more importantly, outside of just Esusu and how and where we continue to grow and capitalize, our biggest goal is that one day rent reporting is the industry standard, the norm. It's expected and required. It's not just the cherry on top that Esusu provides. How can we get it to be, not 10% of American renters, but all American renters who are receiving credit from their on-time housing payments? Going back to our founders' beloved term of justice capitalism, we really do hope that what Esusu is doing in order to prove out that win-win and that you can do well and do good at the same time, we really hope others in the fintech, the multifamily space, the prop tech space, we really hope others catch on to that, because that is really what's going to elevate us all and be better for society and all of our outcomes.
That's really wonderful. And I thank you so much for being on the show and for sharing so much. Kind of as one last question. What is one of your favorite books you've ever read that you would recommend? Just like on a personal level. It could be fiction, it could be self-development, it could be faith-oriented, whatever. But do you have a favorite book that kind of has helped shape you or stayed with you in a major way?
Oh, that's a great question.
Or one of your favorites? Sometimes it's hard to pick a favorite.
I was going to say, it's hard to pick a favorite. And I think back to, my fast-paced energy, my books that I read are kind of like the embarrassing, like easy beach reads.
Nice.
I'm trying to read more, professional development books and whatnot. And one of those that really stuck with me was this book where, when I was at Freddie, the author came and spoke to us. And
oh, cool.
Not only did I love her writing style, it was Reagan Walsh, Heart Boss. And it talks about how you don't and you can't and you shouldn't do it all. And coming from someone like myself, I'm a working parent, I'm a spouse, I'm a sibling, being a mom and a leader in an organization, like there's just so much on my plate that I needed that book, and having her writing be in almost like a comical way, as opposed to like, a very much a self-help book. It's one of my favorites. So, and it's also a short and easy read. So I highly recommend that. It's Reagan Walsh's Heart Boss. Heart Boss,
like heart.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Cool. Oh, that's cool. I'm going to check it out. I love that. I love that you got to meet the author. Yes. Really cool. And how many kids do you have, Alexis?
I have 2 girls and a third on the way.
Oh, congratulations. Oh my gosh, how exciting. Do you know the gender of your third yet?
Another girl.
Yay. So, I have 3 boys. So I have girl envy a little bit. That's so fun. But the boys are the best too. But I love that. It's so exciting, Alexis. Well, thank you for coming on the show and for your grace and setting up some technical difficulties in the beginning. And really, you've done a great job. And congratulations on the success. And we're wishing you all the best as you continue to grow and professionally, individually, and as a company. So thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Do you need help with the next steps for your financial plan? Think Capita. Capita is a financial network built around you. They have a team of financial advisors, CPAs, estate attorneys, Medicare providers, and Social Security experts to help you accomplish your financial goals. Call to schedule a complimentary consultation at 801-566-5058 or visit their website at www.capitafinancialnetwork.com. You can also check out their financial education podcast, The Financial Call, available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and YouTube.